This is the thrilling story of Baki Hama, a brave 17-year-old with extraordinary strength. He's not your average guy. He stands tall, muscular, and radiates power. But that's just the beginning of his amazing abilities. In the dark world of martial arts, 5 fierce fighters want to taste defeat at Baki's hands. They are colossal, 7-foot-tall monsters, each weighing a massive 170 kilograms. Their names, Dorian, Doyle, Sikorsky, Spek, and Ryuku, strike fear in all who hear them. They are cruel and ruthless, seemingly unstoppable. However, they won't find their defeat from Baki. Fate has something else in store. Along the way, they'll meet 4 other exceptional martial artists, each formidable in their own right. Join Baki in his thrilling journey filled with electrifying battles as he faces off against formidable foes and martial virtuosos. It's a tale of strength, suspense, and destiny waiting to unfold. The story starts in a Japanese school where an unexplained tremor shakes things up. The students are unnerved, seeking refuge in the nursing room, thinking it's an earthquake. Little do they know that something mysterious is afoot. Amidst the chaos, one boy remained calm in a corner. Baki Hama, a top-class wrestler, showed the scars of his past battles. 3 bad boys surrounded him, boasting of their thuggish deeds. They didn't believe Baki's story of a simple stairway accident and suspected something more was going on. Throughout the school, people whispered about Baki's legendary skills and demeanor. His calmness and martial prowess earned him both respect and fear. As Ryo gathered the courage to face Baki, something strange overcame him and he couldn't speak. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the magnetic pull of Baki Hama's aura, silencing everyone in its presence. This is just the beginning of their thrilling journey. After getting tired of the boys' childish behavior, Baki calmly said he wanted to leave. However, one of them dared to touch him and asked about his true identity. Baki knew it wouldn't be useful to reveal the truth to them because they were immature, so he didn't answer. Then a fancy luxury car arrived at the school and a respected figure in the martial arts world, Mitsunari Takagawa, stepped out. The school principal was overwhelmed by his presence. At that moment, Baki entered the office and Takagawa was clearly excited to meet this mysterious young fighter. However, Baki remained unbothered by Mitsunari's impressive appearance and casually referred to him as an old man. He presented a box of nitroglycerin crystals to Baki, sharing their fascinating history. Once in liquid form, these crystals were formed when a ship from Vienna to London carried a vast amount of glycerin, turning it into a rare commodity. Mitsunari continued with stories of early coincidences, recounting a chilling incident involving a convict named Dorian in a United States prison. Dorian, a fearsome monster, sought to experience the thrill of defeat before his execution. He managed to overpower his captors and escape to Tokyo, leaving a trail of death in his wake. As Mitsunari shared these tales with Baki, a tense atmosphere hung in the air, hinting at an inevitable clash of forces and destinies. In Scotland, Doyle, driven by an insatiable desire for defeat, found himself strapped to the electric chair, yearning to experience the thrill he craved. A surge of electricity engulfed him, but fate had planned an escape carefully orchestrated before his supposed demise. Across the globe in a Russian prison, a convict named Sikorsky, weighing 100 kilograms, achieved an unbelievable escape. The prison was notorious for its depths, seemingly impossible to escape from. Yet Sikorsky, with unwavering determination, embraced the freezing outside world, turning the impossible into reality. As news of the brutal deaths of fellow officers spread, a frightening realization dawned. The violence showed the unmistakable mark of Sikorsky, who had already left for Tokyo, eagerly seeking the thrill of defeat. Moving forward in the story, another jail became the setting where Spek, the mysterious and fearsome figure, awaited an interview with a counselor. The counselor's reliance on his karate black belt proved futile as he witnessed what happened to the person who came before him. Fear gripped him as he entered Spek's room, where metal objects were not allowed. Despite trying to act calm, the counselor couldn't hide his fear. Spek struck with precision, twisting the counselor's neck and stealing his gold tooth before disappearing, determined to reach Tokyo for his anticipated defeat. Later, in a dramatic scene, Spek emerged effortlessly from a submarine with a wicked grin on his face. Ryuku Yanaji found himself trapped in bulletproof glass containing a deadly gas. The guards' guns were useless against the unbreakable barrier, and Ryuku's laughter revealed their helplessness. With a single touch, he shattered the glass, sealing the guards' fate with the deadly gas. Unbeknownst to everyone, these events were connected, leading to a sinister target, Baki's presence in Tokyo. Baki couldn't piece together all the clues, but Mitsunari was confident that their target was indeed Baki. After all, they were all skilled combat fighters, well-versed in the underground world of criminal martial arts. Baki felt that Mitsunari was blowing things out of proportion. The next day, the skilled kickboxer Robinson was jogging when Doyle threw a newspaper at him so violently that blood started flowing from Robinson's face. While Robinson advised Doyle to save himself, he himself trembled in fear. Dodging Doyle's blade-filled collar, blood started flowing from Robinson's hand. Doyle forcefully thrust the blade from his elbow into Robinson's throat, ending his life. Some troublemakers from Baki's school run a bunch of thugs, including a pickpocket, a hunter, and a swordsman, to test Baki's skills. They had a contract to kill him. Baki was called to an open field, where the gangsters eagerly awaited his defeat. However, upon seeing the swordsman, they realized he was no ordinary guy. He admitted defeat before they could do anything, recognizing that he was facing someone far superior. As the swordsman retreated, another man attempted to throw his hunter at Baki, but it was child's play for him. As the man with the knife tried to scare Baki, he found himself embarrassed when the school bully pointed a gun at him. However, it turned out that Speck was standing there, right in front of Baki's eyes. The story then shifts its focus to the Japanese government's security matters, discussing the 5 dangerous convicts who escaped from jail and were heading towards Tokyo. Suddenly, they received news that Speck had smashed a car with his bare hands in Tokyo, indicating that he has already reached there and is standing right in front of Baki. Speck grabs a gun from one of Baki's classmates and points it at his own face, leaving the classmate terrified. Speck had heard about Baki Hama, the most powerful teenager, and wanted to experience defeat at his hands. When Baki shakes hands with him, Speck's hand gets severed and falls to the ground. According to Speck, that severed hand belonged to someone close to Baki. Suddenly, Speck delivers a powerful kick to Baki, causing him to lose consciousness and his eyes to roll back. Then he grinds Baki's face against the severed hand. Witnessing Speck's brutality, people around call the police, and within minutes they apprehend him. But Speck doesn't seem to be concerned. He bids farewell to Baki before being taken away and promises that they will meet again. He kicks Baki one last time and happily goes away with the police. While the news of Speck and his associates' arrival in Tokyo is being closely monitored, a group of muscular and strong individuals are trying to trace the incidents of the escaped convicts together. The FBI is also collaborating to devise a plan to capture them all. This man is Yujiro Hama, Baki Hama's father. Yujiro Hama possesses the strength to single-handedly defeat any army in the world without weapons. He is feared by politicians and fighters worldwide. Shortly after, a heated conversation takes place between Yanaji and Shibukawa. Gaji Shibukawa, the founder of Shibukawa-style Jujutsu, despite being 70 years old and short in height, has a technique that can bring down even the most powerful individuals. He is a living legend, rightfully called a great warrior. When Shibukawa challenges Yanaji, Yanaji responds by tossing a kettle of boiling water at him, considering this act as his victory. Meanwhile, Speck enjoys the atmosphere and food in jail, but officials are eager to take care of him as soon as possible because they see him as a threat to humanity. One inspector encounters Speck in the restroom and is left speechless with fear. Speck explains that he went to the supermarket to buy Chinese buns and offers to the inspector. However, the inspector makes a grave mistake by attacking Speck after being impressed by his courage. In reality, Speck had violently killed the store owner for those buns. In the martial arts classes, Katsumi Orochi, the co-founder of Shin Kai Combat Karate and Kaigo Retsu, are present. Katsumi faces his opponent, the best fighter in Chinese Kempo in the modern world, who has defeated Baki several times. The two engage in a fierce fight, with only one punch determining the winner, which ultimately goes to Kaiho. Katsumi announces that he will now begin learning the ancient Chinese technique, a 4,000-year-old Kempo. Just then, an unknown guest arrives at the gathering, and it turns out to be Dorian. Dorian walks in and asks about Orochi. Katsumi doesn't like Dorian wearing his shoes inside, so Dorian uses the excuse of removing his shoes and deceitfully kicks him hard in the face, breaking his eye sockets. When Katsumi responds, Dorian suddenly puts a wooden stake around his neck, severely injuring him. When Dorian realizes that he mistook Katsumi for Orochi, he tries to leave but is caught by Retsu. Dorian puts on a show of crocodile tears, pretending to be remorseful. In the midst of this, Dorian tries to target Retsu's eye with a broken nose hair, but he receives a sharp response. Dorian sarcastically compliments Retsu and takes out a bottle of alcohol, attempting to distract him and set up his next move, but it backfires, and he ends up being engulfed in flames. He escapes from the scene. Meanwhile, it's fitness test day at Baki Hama's school, which includes a 100-meter race, softball throw, and long jump. This is the first time Baki is participating in such a test. As soon as the PE teacher blows his whistle, Baki starts running and creates a hole in the ground due to his immense speed. This is just the beginning as Baki throws the softball so high into the air that he breaks the record. In the long jump, he easily surpasses the jumping slot while standing, and the PE teacher asks him to jump inside the measuring area to get the right measurements. When it's time for chin-ups, Baki completes his set in just 1 second, but nobody sees him doing it. The teacher asks him to do it again slowly, and as he hangs on the bar, he loosened the joints. This time, it was beyond the teacher's tolerance as Baki had already caused enough damage. Now only the 1,500 meters race remains. When Baki asked the teacher about the world record for the race, all the kids burst into laughter. The world record for the 1,500 meters race was 3 minutes and 26 seconds, but no one had confidence in Baki. He wishes that if he breaks the record, the teacher would pass him in all his rounds. The race begins with great excitement, and everyone is amazed by Baki's physique. Also, Baki's speed is unimaginable, even he seems invisible. In the first round itself, he breaks the 400 meters record. The teacher can't believe how he managed to do it. Suddenly, Baki experiences a muscle cramp in his leg and his speed starts to decline. It feels like Baki is dragging 100 kilograms with him. Nonetheless, Baki manages to complete the race, so the teacher passes him. Then Kanji Igari enters into the story, joining Mitsunari and the new judo champion for dinner. Kanji is a well-known wrestler who has given Baki tough fights in the past, though he ended up witnessing Baki's defeat in the final rounds. Kanji has a habit of underestimating new players, considering them as fresh challenges to conquer. However, the new competitor disagrees, claiming he's always ready to fight anyone, anytime, even without prize money. He believes in earning respect and fame through the matches. Their gathering is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of Sairuski, one of the formidable warriors. Sairuski's appearance leaves the new competitor with numerous cuts on his face, showcasing Sairuski's deadly knuckles. Sairuski taunts the new competitor, criticizing fighters who only fight during official matches as a disgrace to martial arts. Sairuski wanted a private talk with Mitsurugi, but Kanji couldn't control his ego and attempted to attack Sairuski. However, Sairuski's agility and stamina make Kanji's effort seem childish. Sairuski knocks him down with a dropkick and inflicts further damage with his powerful knuckles. He asserts that pro wrestlers without a stage are cowards. Mitsurugi takes Sairuski to his fighting arena, where Sairuski senses the lingering scent of past battles. In the midst of their conversation, they hear approaching footsteps, and soon the 5 dangerous fighters who left Tokyo stand before Mitsurugi with serious expressions. Mitsurugi is awestruck by their presence and asks the reason for their visit. Dorian explains that they couldn't resist visiting this legendary martial arts ring, as no martial artist can stay away from such a place. Doyle insists that they came here to face true fighters, not mere hooligans. Thus, Mitsunari had to make arrangements to satisfy their wish. As they ponder about battling each other, suddenly, Baki's calm voice reaches their ears. He smartly mentions that he needs to go to school early tomorrow, so whatever they have to do, they should do it swiftly. His words resonate with everyone in the room, but Baki Hama is not alone. Dappo and Shibukawa stand beside him, ready for whatever comes their way. Dappo Orochi, the co-founder of Shin Karat and renowned as the god of war, stands as a formidable presence in the arena. Koru Hanama, a 15-year-old prodigy, not only leads the Hamana gang, but is also Japan's best street fighter. Recently, a momentous match took place among 38 elite fighters in this arena, considered the grandest competition in Japanese history, and the victorious contender was none other than Baki Hama. Mitsunari explains that he called these 5 fighters, even though they aren't in the top 5, because Sairuski's words hold true. Real fights and combat tournaments are vastly different. Every martial artist should be ready for any battle that life throws at them. The desire to taste defeat is the reason they stand before the top wrestlers. Baki's anytime, anywhere challenge may not have sat well with everyone, but all the young fighters embrace it, recognizing that martial arts are meant for facing the challenges of daily life. Shibukawa declares that there will be no rules in this contest except for making their opponents experience the horrors of hell, whether they're eating, sleeping, or doing anything else. The match is set to begin now, and the only rule is to constantly think about defeating someone at any time at any place. Sairuski ponders over who his first opponent will be, and Retsu decides to shadow Dappo Dorian, hoping to provoke him into a reluctant battle. As the intense battle between Dorian and Dappo Orochi rages on, Retsu steps forward to confront Dorian. Seizing the opportunity, Dappo lands a powerful punch on Dorian's face, briefly staggering him. However, Dorian quickly regains his composure and counterattacks fiercely, unleashing flames akin to a dinosaur breathing fire. Despite Dappo's incredible rotation defense, which can even block bullets and missiles, Dorian proves to be a formidable opponent. Meanwhile, Kanji, still recovering from his injuries, stands determinedly before Sikorsky. Having learned from his earlier arrogance, Kanji decides to teach Sikorsky a lesson, using his boxing skills to silence him and placing a band on his mouth to keep him quiet. However, Sikorsky's devilish smile suggests he may have an ulterior motive. In another shocking twist, Dorian employs a razor-sharp tungsten wire to sever Dappo's hand, leaving everyone in terror and shock. Dorian represents modernization and the use of cutting-edge tools, believing that fighters should continually improve their skills just as people use science to enhance their daily lives. Dappo, on the other hand, believes in the strength of traditional training and has relentlessly strengthened his hands and bones since childhood. Despite losing his hand, he has patiently awaited a day when he would have to fight without it. Dappo lands a powerful blow on Dorian's face, sending him flying 10 meters away and rendering him unconscious. Kanji's disciples restrain Sikorsky in the gym, believing victory is within their grasp. But then, to their surprise, Sikorsky stands up, protected by his bulletproof jacket. Sikorsky retaliates with his knuckles, inflicting a brutal attack on Kanji, bringing him to his knees and forcing him to surrender. Kanji realizes that facing Sikorsky's strength, stamina, and power alone would have been impossible, even if his all ancestors have fought together. Sikorsky emerges victorious and Kanji pleads for his life. Unable to forget the humiliation, Sikorsky delivers a powerful kick to Kanji's face, leaving him terrified and feeling as if death itself is before him. Sikorsky is determined to strip away Kanji's arrogance along with his life, relentlessly showering him with dumbbells and covering everything around in his blood. In a final act of disrespect, Sikorsky urinates on Kanji, further adding to his degradation. The next day, Baki goes on a date with his friend Kazu Mishimatsu, who comes from a wealthy family and shares a deep connection with Baki. They have always had feelings for each other, but their emotions remain unspoken until today. Baki finally gathers the courage to confess his love to Kozu. Some thugs try to interrupt their moment, but when they witness the affectionate expressions on Baki's face and his determination, they wisely back off. With Kozu by his side, they enjoy each other's company while exploring the city. As the evening approaches, Baki holds Kozu's hand, unaware that someone is secretly following them, plotting to ruin these precious moments of love. After walking for a while, Kozu expresses her concern to Baki about the dangers he faces in wrestling matches. She recalls a previous match where she could see the intensity in his eyes, and she understands that winning in titles mean a lot to him as a wrestler. However, she also reminds him that behind every fighter, there are loved ones who worry and suffer when they get hurt. Baki kisses her and opens up, sharing that wrestling has become his life, and he has never confided this to anyone before. In the park, Kozu asks Baki why he trusts her so deeply, and he confesses that after his mother, she is the most important person in his life. They share a tender moment and start kissing. Unaware of being watched, Hanayama appears and takes Spec aside. Spec tries to taunt Hanayama, thinking he's being saved, but he quickly realizes his mistake as Hanayama retaliates with a powerful kick, causing Spec's nose to bleed profusely. Seeing Hanayama's muscular body covered in tattoos and scars, Spec becomes frightened. Hanayama's tattoos are a tribute to a Samaritan who saved his family from thugs when he was young but died tragically in a temple incident. The scars on Hanayama's body tell stories of his past. One day, Hanayama's teammates found dozens of bodies at the Tomizawa headquarters, and they were all shocked by the horrifying scene created by Hanayama's anger. Spec, underestimating Hanayama, tried to confront him, but he soon discovered the immense power of his opponent. Despite injuring Hanayama's face, Spec knew he might face retaliation from the formidable fighter. As Hanayama and Spec engage in a fierce battle, the Statue of Liberty becomes an unwitting witness to the chaos. A police officer spots a monster practicing boxing on the statue's baseline, causing it to sway from the impact. The officer calls for help, and workers with thick metal ropes rush to stabilize the statue temporarily. The security minister notes that the damage to the iconic statue is akin to a direct attack on their nation, and it's astonishing that someone without weapons could create such an impact. Indeed, Spec's extraordinary move, called the Rush, involves continuous and breathless attacks that render the opponent unable to move. He rains down punches on Hanayama with this technique. However, Hanayama, known for his immense strength, interrupts Spec's combo with a powerful punch, sending Spec flying 20 meters away. The police, determined to apprehend Spec, select 20 well-trained officers and equip them with the strongest metal armor and weapons. They are prepared to face Spec, who has broken out of jail for the third time and poses a significant threat. Spec's actions challenge the pride of their security system, and the officer is frustrated by the situation. Back in the park, Hanayama continues to overpower Spec, tossing him around like a laundry bag. Spec tries to surrender with his mouth, but he has a trick up his sleeve. He places bullets in his mouth and triggers an explosion, causing a massive blast visible from miles away. As the explosion occurred, Hanayama's face took on a gruesome appearance, resembling that of a zombie. Despite the injuries, he mustered the strength to fight back, delivering a powerful punch to Spec and pinning him to an electric pole. The inspector, upon receiving news of the incident, rushed to the scene and was amazed by what he saw. Impressed by Hanayama's victory over Spec, the inspector decided to give him VIP treatment and assigned his soldier, Sumio Katahira, to accompany him. Sunio shared the details of the intense battle with others the next day, unable to forget the horrifying scene. Speck may have appeared weak, but he was far stronger and more stubborn than he seemed. After taking out all the officers, Speck turned his attention to Hanayama and viciously attacked his knees with bullets, revealing his true malicious intent. The match had turned into a deadly game, with Speck continuously raining bullets on Hanayama's knees. Sunio vividly remembered the sound of Hanayama's bones snapping during the brutal attack. Despite the seemingly grim situation, Hanayama's abilities were not to be underestimated. When Speck attempted to finish him off by placing a pistol in his mouth, Hanayama skillfully redirected the bullet using a wound on his face. He then swiftly grabbed Speck's finger and turned the tables, pummeling Speck relentlessly. Sunio was in awe of this ferocious display, and it seemed like the fight had reached its conclusion. However, just as Hanayama paused for a moment, he noticed a pin in Speck's finger, which turned out to be a stun grenade. The grenade emitted a blinding light, momentarily disorienting Hanayama as well. During those few seconds, Speck capitalized on the opportunity and used his deadly weapon, his hands, to choke Hanayama perfectly. No one had ever escaped from such a chokehold before. Hanayama was known for his incredible grip strength, capable of tearing a deck of cards effortlessly, as he had done in his match with Yuri-Chikoski, which was rumored to be his last match in the ring. It was said that Hanayama tore Yuri's hand into 2 pieces, and now he had done something similar to Speck. Hanayama's immense grip strength left Speck powerless. The pain was terrifying and excruciating. Struggling with the agony, Speck pushed his middle finger into Hanayama's ear, reaching his brain through the same hand that was choking him. It was a desperate attempt to break free. To reconnect the damaged nerves in his neck, no surgeon in the world possessed the expertise. Despite losing both his knees and enduring unbearable pain, Hanayama stood up and declared his victory with pride. In the next scene, we see Speck in the Metropolitan Hospital, hooked up to a ventilator. The doctors explained that when he arrived, he appeared to be around 50 years old, but his body now resembled that of a 97-year-old. The assistant asked if there was any cure for him, to which the doctor replied that there was no solution in his medical knowledge. Then the doctor goes on to tell a fascinating story about a ship found off the coast of California called the Sun Crane ship, which sank in 1874. Jack Lee Biondi spent 30 years searching for the ship and finally discovered it in 1976. Inside, he found jewelry worth around 1.6 billion rupees. During an interview, Jack Lee revealed that when he saw the treasure, he was overwhelmed with emotion. Some people laughed it off, but a few days later, Jack Lee unexpectedly passed away. Many suspected foul play, as jealousy could have motivated someone to harm the suddenly famous treasure hunter. However, doctors discovered that the cause of his death was rapid aging. Jack Lee appeared to be a young man, but he died of old age, as he was actually an elderly man who had cherished every moment of life. The day his dream came true, he unearthed his most precious possession, his desire to live. As for Speck's case, it was different. He was brought here after losing, and perhaps the doctors didn't know that Speck's dream was to taste the defeat. Today is also Baki's exam day, but when he looks at the paper, his eyes start closing. Baki's teachers scold him and humiliate him, advising him to give up studying and focus on going to the Olympics. They lecture him about the importance of brain power, suggesting that Baki can't achieve anything with just physical strength. It seems that everyone is displeased with their behavior and fed up. Suddenly, Doyle makes a dramatic entrance, jumping from the ground to the second floor, proving the teacher's words wrong. Doyle tells Baki that he brought chili from the window and will make his life spicy in no time. Without waiting for anyone's response, he starts showing off his dominance. Baki first tries to stop him, but then cleverly attacks Doyle to put him in his place. Before falling to the ground, Doyle repositions himself and stands in front of Baki again. However, Doyle is impressed with Baki's presence of mind. Despite being only 17 years old, Baki understands the difference between a controlled arena fight and a real-life dangerous situation. When Doyle brandishes a sharp blade, both Baki and the other students feel uneasy. Doyle wants to show that even in seemingly safe places like a school, there can be hidden dangers. Baki takes a deep breath, quickly assesses the situation, and makes a split-second decision to escape. He jumps out of the window to protect his identity and life. Baki never imagined that his enemies would come to his school to threaten him, but now he must find a way to stay safe. While wandering in the school garden, Baki encounters a gardener for the first time, but he ignores him and continues ahead. Little does he know that the gardener, Yanaji, is thirsty for his blood and has ill intentions towards him. Yanaji attacks Baki from behind, wielding his koketsu weapon with lightning speed, causing Baki to feel like he may be in grave danger. Baki finds himself facing Yanaji without any other options for escape. Yanaji relentlessly continues his assault, but Baki skillfully manages to dodge his strikes, grateful to still be alive. Yanaji then takes out a blade for the second round of the fight and grabs Baki, spinning his koketsu even faster. The intensity of the attack wounds Baki's hand and raises the tension of the situation. Despite the danger, Baki stays focused and manages to push Yanaji's weapon away with his shirt, keeping it out of Yanaji's reach. Suddenly, someone throws a water-filled kettle towards Yanaji, and the splash reminds Yanaji of the day he faced Shibukawa. However, this time the water and the kettle are cold, but Shibukawa's intentions are not. He lifts Yanaji with one hand and throws him to the ground. At this moment, an 87-year-old doctor with 60 years of dental experience appears. He explains that the strength of even the biggest athletes depends on their biting force. Some athletes have dental issues, and there's a case where the molars have completely sunk into the gums of a martial arts athlete, Ryukyu Yanaji. Baki can't understand how Yanaji managed to tear Shibukawa's hand with a single attack. Shibukawa reveals that he used the bagnak, a weapon favored by the Indian warrior king, Chhatrapati Shivaji. Its attack is faster than a tiger's claw. Shibukawa warns Baki that he will have to face both enemies at the same time in the next round, which surprises Baki and makes him realize the gravity of the situation. When Baki kicks Yanaji away, Yanaji can't believe he is struggling against a mere 17-year-old boy. Yanaji prepares for his next clever move, and Shibukawa advises Baki to be cautious, referring to Yanaji as the poisoner. Yanaji asks Baki about the most poisonous gas in the world, suggesting carbon monoxide or cyanide. However, these gases only slowly suffocate people. Yanaji's words seem to hypnotize Baki, and as soon as he places his hand on Baki's mouth, an unexpected turn of events occurs. As Baki's vision starts to blur, he realizes that Yanaji has coated his hand with a potent poison. Baki struggles to break free, but the poison takes effect quickly, weakening his movements and causing immense pain. Shibukawa intervenes, using his martial arts skills to disrupt Yanaji's attack. However, Yanaji manages to escape, leaving Baki and Shibukawa stunned by the encounter. The evening brings all the heroes together at Mitsunere's house, where he mocks Baki and the Doppo group by calling them amateurs. When discussions about competitions arise, Mitsunere dismisses their minor mistakes, but he warns them that such negligence can be costly in serious fights. Winning competitions should not be about seeking the spotlight and becoming a hero. This mindset can ruin one's performance and reputation. Suddenly, Hanayama grabs Mitsunere by the collar. Mitsunere makes a mistake that costs him dearly. He claims that he is the most saddened by their defeat, and that he trusts the other four more than anyone else. Baki starts to leave abruptly as he needs to attend school the next day. However, as soon as he opens the gate, he is confronted by a new guest, Dorian. Dorian has brought a bucket full of gasoline, and his intentions seem ominous. Dorian has already taken out all of Mitsunere's guards, showing him the upper hand he possesses. Just as Dorian ignites the lighter, he realizes that someone has been following him. It turns out to be Kasumi, who seeks to settle the score with Dorian. He pours gasoline on Dorian's intentions, and with a lighter in hand, mounts him like death himself. At first, Kasumi says that his current principles don't teach him to take advantage of opportunities, but then he declares that it doesn't matter to him. With a blazing lighter, Kasumi sets Dorian on fire before everyone's eyes. The intense confrontation leaves everyone shocked and on edge. Doppo's style impressed Kasumi because Kasumi had never won a fight using any weapons. For a karate fighter, the knuckles, elbows, and kicks are the true weapons. If a fighter needs belts or shoes, it's considered a stain on their martial art. Before a fight, a fighter's hands must remain untarnished for the purity of their art. Everyone thought Dorian was in serious condition, so they called for an ambulance. However, to everyone's surprise, Dorian suddenly stood up, exhaling smoke from his mouth, and began laughing. Then Kiyosumi Kato enters the scene, the master of Shin Karate Academy. Upon learning about Doppo's severed hand, Kato delivers a powerful punch to Dorian, making him kneel on his knees. He proclaims that Doppo's single hand is stronger and more valuable than any diamond. When Dorian claims he can't hear anything, Kato separates Dorian's ear with his newly made nylon weapon. However, this action goes against Doppo's principles. Kasumi Kato considered Kiyosumi Kato as his master because Kato followed the principles of the Shin school, not Doppo's. Suddenly, Doppo attacks the injured Dorian from behind to explain the philosophy of Shin Kai, but nobody could understand the lesson. Just then, a flying tungsten wire appears and entangles Kato and Kasumi together. Dorian's wire was actually the one that entangled Kiyosumi Kato and Kasumi, but Doppo skillfully cuts it with his one sharp hand, setting them free. Doppo's true lesson was to show that with practice, one can make their hands so strong that they can easily cut a 200 kilograms tensile strength wire. The essence of karate lies in being empty-handed, so using cheap tricks or toys to tarnish the reputation of karate is unacceptable. Meanwhile, Dorian was up to something and he activated the bomb hidden in his mouth. Mitsunare's house is destroyed in a matter of seconds. When questioned by investigators, Mitsunare reveals that someone cunningly dropped the bomb from his window and escaped. He urges anyone with information to inform the police. Later, Dorian is spotted in the city, causing fear among people. He quietly enters a building's corner, where an onlooker is terrified and disappears. Dorian silently opens what seems like a gutter, but is actually a tunnel leading several meters underground. Dorian had made it his hiding spot, where he begins to treat himself. However, an intruder enters his territory, and it is the cunning and crafty Kato, who considers himself a mastermind. Dorian seems surprisingly relaxed. He reveals that he discovered this place 50 years ago when he was a teenager. Kato contemplates attacking Dorian, but he forgets that this is Dorian's territory. Dorian breaks some pieces of his old beer bottles, not to dance but to coat his fists with grease, these same hands that are now enough to unbalance Kato. Dorian, however, gives Kato a chance for one last decision that will determine the outcome between them. The battle between Dorian and Kato was gruesome and relentless, with each combatant unleashing powerful blows upon the other. At first, Kato hesitated to use the grease on his hands, but he soon realized that he had to employ every tactic available to face the monstrous Dorian. Bloodied and bruised, Kato struck back with his fists, but Dorian proved to be a formidable opponent, countering with broken glass shards to cut Kato's face and landing a devastating punch to his mouth. Undeterred, Kato remained resolute and initiated a series of aerial attacks on Dorian, who remained eerily composed and in control. Dorian smashed a glass bottle against Kato's head, inflicting severe damage to his face. Confused, Kato questioned why Dorian aimed for his face instead of a more strategic target like his neck, which could have led to victory. In response, Dorian taunted Kato by singing an English song and even jabbed him in the eye with a broken nose hair. After recovering his senses, Kato attempted to retaliate, but Dorian quickly delivered a swift and powerful kick that sent Kato flying into the wall. Throughout the fierce battle, Dorian seemed to derive pleasure from the fight, relishing the combat while Kato fought desperately to survive. Seizing some bottles, Kato hurled them at Dorian, smashing 4 of them against his face. Despite the intense injuries he endured, Kato refused to yield and continued to deliver relentless punches to Dorian. The battle raged on, with both fighters pushing their physical and mental limits in a relentless quest for dominance. The battle between Kato and Dorian reached its climax, and the outcome remained uncertain. In a surprising turn of events, Dorian employed his hypnosis skills, clapping his hands to manipulate Kato's mind. Under Dorian's control, Kato's once fiery determination and excitement turned into a sense of helplessness. He screamed in distress, unable to defend himself against Dorian's unrelenting attacks. Just as Dorian appeared to have the upper hand, a second clap was heard and Kato broke free from the hypnotic trance. He saw Dorian standing unscathed before him, and his determination surged back. This twist in the match was due to Dorian's hypnosis. With newfound resolve, Kato launched his final attack, but Dorian swiftly countered with a powerful punch that sent Kato crashing to the ground. Dorian then utilized his tungsten wire to deliver a deep and severe cut to Kato's neck, causing blood to spurt out. The injury was grave, and Kato teetered on the edge of losing consciousness. In the aftermath of the battle, the scene shifts to Master Retsu of the Shin Kai, diligently practicing his skills. However, the focus soon returns to the devastating injuries sustained by Kato. The extent of his wounds is beyond imagination, with broken nose, missing teeth, shattered leg bones, and numerous fractures. His internal organs were damaged, and his ribs had punctured his lungs. The doctors described Kato's condition as horrifying and devastating as he fights for his life in critical condition. The weight of revenge and the reputation of Shin Kai rest on his shoulders. Katsumi is determined to avenge Kato's injuries and declares that Dorian's face will be in every newspaper tomorrow, with 10,000 members of Shin Kai seeking retribution. Dorian may have been aware of this impending threat and is wandering the city in disguise. Later that evening, Dorian encounters a waiter at a hotel who addresses him by name. To Dorian's surprise, the waiter turns out to be Kiyosumi Kato's senior, warning him that he will regret his actions as 10,000 people will seek vengeance on him. Dorian's fate seems to be sealed, regardless of the disguises he adopts. As Dorian steps out, he finds himself surrounded by countless people, all associated with the Shin Kai organization. As he gets into a taxi, Dorian asks the driver if he, too, is a member of Shin Kai. The driver confirms that not just him, but everyone around is part of the organization, united in their mission to take down Dorian. He quickly realizes that not only the members of Shin Kai, but also fighters from 11 different countries are after him, seeking revenge or fulfilling their personal vendettas. The thirst for Dorian's blood is palpable among the crowd. The taxi takes them to an amusement park, where hundreds of people are waiting for Dorian. They urge him to enter the park because someone inside is eager to face him. However, Dorian sets a condition before going in. He challenges anyone who can defeat him one by one, and he even mentions the rule of the Shin Shin Kai, where each fighter can only face one opponent. Dorian gives the driver a chance to fight him first, but with a swift kick, the driver is knocked unconscious. Dorian's point is clear. Even if they bring all the fighters one by one, they won't stand a chance against him. With this statement, he confidently walks into the amusement park, ready to face whatever challenges come his way. The park was closed, so it was quite peaceful there. Suddenly, Dorian's attention was drawn to a joker named Oshida, and with a signal, the amusement park came alive with excitement. They both held hands and moved forward. At that moment, Atsushi Suido appeared, who was Kato's batchmate and the third-ranked fighter in Shin Shin Kai. Suido was determined to quench his thirst for revenge with Dorian's bloods. Since Dorian had come to Japan, it was the first time he encountered someone his size. As they introduced themselves, they clashed with each other. Dorian perhaps knew that defeating Suido with sheer strength would be difficult, so he started evading Suido's attacks and tried to escape here and there. On the other hand, Suido was relentless in pursuing him. Dorian climbed a moving roller coaster to escape from Suido's pursuit. As their ride went up, Dorian reminded Suido of his words that even if he died, it wouldn't matter to him. Today, those words would be truly tested. The emotion of seeking revenge for a friend is a part of human nature, but in the real world, this emotion can weigh heavily on you. No matter how high Suido rises, he will come crashing down again. Dorian, known for his cunning and crafty nature, realized that defeating Suido with sheer strength alone would be challenging. Instead, he focused on evading Suido's attacks and using the park's rides and obstacles to his advantage. As the battle between Suido and Dorian reached its peak on the roller coaster, Dorian launched a surprise attack from behind, attempting to choke Suido, but the high-speed ride made it difficult for him to maintain his grip. Suido, however, remembered a lesson from Doppo Orochi on maintaining balance on a moving surface. He stood in a specific pose and retaliated against Dorian, keeping himself in control. Their fight continued as the roller coaster twisted and turned, making it a thrilling and dangerous battleground. Dorian managed to grab Suido and jump from the ride, leading to a dramatic mid-air confrontation that ended in a powerful crash on the ground. Despite the injuries, Dorian managed to get up first, while Suido struggled to recover and died immediately. Meanwhile, Kasumi, the fellow member of Shin Shin Kai seeking revenge for Kato's injuries, confronted Dorian. With Doppo and Retsu supporting Kasumi, it became clear that Dorian's fate was sealed, and he would not leave the encounter alive. The story then delves into Retsu's past, where he underwent a challenging training challenge with his Zen master. The master emphasized the importance of mindset and belief in achieving one's goals. Retsu demonstrated his prowess by defeating multiple guards with ease, impressing the master. As Retsu continued his journey in the temple, he discovered a hidden gate leading to a tunnel created by an ancient Chinese Kempo technique. This technique allowed one to alter the shape of a stone with their hands and reach a state of perfection in Kempo. Behind the gate lay the secret that Retsu had been eagerly seeking, a path to mastery in the ancient martial art. As Retsu delved deeper into the history of the temple, the Zen master showed him a rune filled with dagon, which were stone balls crafted through the ancient Chinese Kempo technique. Among all the dagon, there was one unique stone ball that couldn't be kept inside the room. That special dagon was the same tunnel that had been handcrafted by a foreigner named Kaiho. The Zen master then shared the intriguing story of Kaiho, revealing that he was a man destined for the gallows due to his dark and sinister past. This revelation struck a chord with Retsu, and a realization began to dawn on him. He became convinced that Dorian, the cunning and dangerous opponent he had encountered, was none other than the enigmatic and notorious Kaiho. The pieces of the puzzle seemed to fall into place, and Retsu's pursuit of the truth led him closer to the identity of his formidable adversary. The connection between Kaiho's dark past and Dorian's menacing present became apparent, creating a sense of urgency for Retsu to uncover the secrets hidden within the ancient tunnel. Herefore, Retsu respectfully acknowledges Dorian, as Dorian had left the Balan Temple 40 years ago. After a decade had passed, news spread of a wise person born on that land who took the title of Kaiho. Dorian hadn't expected that their encounter would take place in Japan. When Dorian expressed his desire to fight Retsu, he remarked that despite Dorian's heinous and condemnable acts, he hadn't truly learned the essence of martial arts. Just as Kasumi approaches from behind, Doppo Orochi declares that, as the founder of Shin Shin Kai, he alone has the right to challenge Dorian, and another reason is to settle an old score with him. Doppo fearlessly steps forward into the arena and reveals that he can still feel the same passion he had 20 years ago when he fought and defeated a 2.5-meter-long, 260-kilogram Siberian tiger. This fact was unknown even to his own son, Kasumi, who didn't know that the tiger his father had slain was a rare species, which is why Doppo had never openly discussed it. At that moment, Orochi attacks Dorian, breaking his right arm, the very arm that Dorian had sliced like a carrot. This hand had been reattached to him at the Umesawa clinic, where his old friend took care of his treatment. But this was not an easy task. Before the operation, the doctor had warned him that the procedure would be excruciatingly painful, making him feel as if he were experiencing hell. The process took 15 hours, and only after the operation did Dappo start to feel his hand again, eagerly awaiting the moment to confront Dorian. Before the fight, Dorian had already declared that he would fight as a Kenpo practitioner. But as soon as they exchanged punches, Dorian's acid bottle and real art both came into play. Orochi then began to make Dorian suffer. Seizing the opportunity, Dappo struck a karate chop, disfiguring Dorian's face. Dorian paused and stated that he, who had devoted everything to karate, had never been defeated and never would be. Afterward, Dorian started practicing karate poses. Kasumi thought that maybe this was Dorian's new strategy. Observing his actions, Dappo decided to test him. He threw a stone towards Kasumi and another towards Dorian. The second stone seemed to disappear into thin air, but in reality, Dorian's palm had turned it to dust, and he blew that dust towards Dappo's face, trying to distract him. But Dappo knew that Dorian was a Kenpo master, so underestimating him could be fatal. Suddenly, Dorian's demeanor changed, and he started to cry, shifting his tactics. It turned out that Dorian had used hypnosis, and he was now manipulating Dappo Orochi's mind. Dappo was visualizing the image of Dorian as he wanted, as if falling into Dorian's trap. Retsu revealed that it wasn't Kenpo, but rather a successful hypnosis technique. At that moment, Orochi found himself ensnared in Dorian's illusion, wasting his energy on a fake opponent. Dorian says, "How could the mighty god of war like you become such a fool in the mind? Let's lift the veil from your sweet dreams." If Dorian wanted, he could have broken free from the hypnosis, but he ended up getting his face smashed instead. Dappo started to brutally attack him and took him down. Kasumi thought that maybe Dappo was never affected by hypnosis, but in reality, Dappo Orochi was so deeply immersed in the fight that he only desired victory. After years of fighting experience, he knew that battles were not easy. Battles were meant to torment the human mind and body, and Dappo Orochi had learned how to remain strong in those challenges like no one else. Even getting up was now a difficult task for Dorian. Despite being under hypnosis, Dappo continued to pummel him relentlessly. And the moment Retsu broke the spell, Orochi became even more charged up. The iron fist that Dorian once used to break wood and steel was now crushed by Dappo like it was nothing. Dorian's dream of victory seemed about to come true, but before his defeat, he wanted to test every move against Orochi, who stood firm and faced him head-on. He became convinced that Dorian, the cunning and dangerous opponent he had encountered, was none. Kasumi is stunned by what he saw, as it's the first time in his life that he has witnessed someone holding a sword with their bare hands. At the same time, Dorian's body begins to retaliate. He can no longer claim that a karate devotee cannot defeat him. In the midst of this, Dappo crushes Dorian's other hand and delivers a barrage of punches to his chest, capable of breaking anyone's ribs, no matter how muscular they may be. Upon receiving the final punch, Dorian starts vomiting blood. Dappo reminds him of the art of karate again and follows up with a kick that shatters both of Dorian's knees, leaving him unable to stand. Dorian believes that his end is near as blood gushes from his entire body. As Dappo mentions the final attack, Dorian trembles with fear upon seeing the punch. However, it turns out to be a mere joke. The real attack involves Kato lifting himself on his hands and standing close to Dorian. Before the final strike, Dorian concedes defeat and starts shedding tears of regret. But perhaps he didn't know what fate awaited him. Upon examining Dorian's hands, Kato's doctor starts laughing upon realizing the truth. During the examination, a small explosive is discovered in Dorian's hand, although the doctor isn't entirely sure about its nature. His companion advises him not to overthink and take some rest. But what was truly frightening was that Dorian had not accepted defeat. He was missing from his bed. He went to Kato's room and declared that one more task remained unfinished. Saying this, Dorian leaped out of the window and disappeared. Dappo Orochi must be feeling quite proud now, wanting to surprise his wife with his regained hand. However, before opening the gate, he senses something wrong and arrives cautiously. Upon seeing the dire state of his home, his emotions start to churn, and he begins calling out his wife's name loudly. It is then that his gaze falls upon Dorian's lighter, but before he can react, Dorian sneaks up behind him and triggers the explosive he had hidden in his hand. After such a massive explosion, blood gushes from Dorian's hand and he starts singing his favorite song while his hand is lost. However, it's not just his hand. Dappo Orochi's entire face is splattered with blood. After that night, Kozu and Baki grow closer. They spend nearly the entire day together and their bond becomes stronger. In the evening, when it's time to apart, they might have wanted to say something to each other. However, he can't find the words to say it. Before leaving, they share one last kiss, and Kozu promises to meet him after 10 minutes before running away. A little later, Retsu faces Dorian, who wants to understand the meaning of strength. Retsu explains that strength used for the well-being of others and strength used for personal gain are both forms of strength. However, Dorian always wanted to relish the taste of defeat, which weakened his strength. Hearing this, Dorian chuckles and says that he has won countless battles while chasing after defeat. Finally, his desire was to defeat Retsu, and upon hearing this, Retsu confidently takes his stance and declares that he will put an end to this desire of Dorian's. Upon hearing this, Dorian slyly wraps a blood-stained cloth around his face, trying to deceive Retsu. But even with his eyes closed, Retsu doesn't falter. Dorian knows that he won't be able to defeat Retsu, so he challenges him knowing that Retsu will be the one to fulfill his desire to lose. Soon, an ambulance, accompanied by several police officers, is seen approaching as a 150 kilograms criminal escaped from an American jail. Alongside him are Retsu and some soldiers whose condition looks quite bad. They tell Retsu that they are merely soldiers by name and that if anything happens, he will have to help them. Retsu assures them that this time won't be the same. Suddenly, Dorian gets up from his bed and looks out of the window, repeatedly muttering just one word, candy. Everyone trembles with fear upon seeing him as nobody knows what he might do at any moment. Meanwhile, Kazu arrives at her home, eagerly waiting for the rest to come. As usual, Baki also arrives to meet her, but their meeting won't be so easy. Suddenly, someone knocks on Kozu's window, but when she looks, there's no one there. This increases Kozu's fear. Before she can react, a large hand covers her mouth. It turns out to be Sairuski's hand, who warns her not to make any noise or else she'll become dear to God along with her mother. And you know how much harm I can do. And if you understand, blink your eyelids lightly. And upon doing so, Sairuski abandons her gently. Kozuki says that by looking at your body and eyes, I can tell that if I make one mistake, you will kill me along with my mom. But besides her, there is one other person in whom I trust more than you. Saying this much, Kozu loudly calls out the name of Baki loudly, and suddenly, he surprises them by kicking Sairuski. Kozu embraces Sairuski and starts crying. Sairuski wanted to fight against the strongest opponent, that's why he was behind the rest. Just then, the rest attack him twice and say that you have crossed the limit today, and as soon as Sairuski injures them with his brass knuckles, the rest picks him up by the collar and throws him out of the window. But due to his carelessness, Sairuski escapes and he takes Kozu with him. All that's left of the rest is his jacket, and on the way, Sairuski makes fun of him because although the rest has become strong, he is still mentally weak. The next day, a meeting is called at the Japan headquarters, where 6 people have gathered to catch 5 dangerous criminals. Among them are Commissioner Mario Sonoda, Head Nobu, the President John Spencer, FBI Director Burke, the Chief of England, and the Russian official Valentin Sokurov. Sonoda says that 3 criminals are still on the run. Although Japan has the highest arrest rate, the situation is different this time. They already lost their skilled soldiers. Japan's security wants everyone's support. Valentine says that only one man who himself was once a criminal can help in this matter. However, at this time, he is working for the American police while staying in jail, and he is given more facilities than even high-ranking officers. Suddenly, Bart says that he is a beast, and trusting him might not be a good idea. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable sharing information about Olive. Shortly after, a meeting request is made, and Sonoda's mind is fixated on Olive's name because now he was his last hope. On the same day, Sonoda catches a flight straight to America, where Michael has come to welcome him. Sonoda wants to meet Olive without any delay. After meeting with Olive, they head straight to the jail. Michael tells him that Olive has been waiting for him for a long time. Hearing this, Sonoda is taken aback and wonders if Olive is really a criminal. Just then, their car stops at the Arizona jail, and upon seeing the security there, Sonoda is astonished. But there was no significant security in front of Olive's cell. Sonoda would have to proceed alone from here. As he enters, he finds another room, and standing in front of him is Olive, who looks like a monstrous figure with well-defined muscles and veins shining even from a distance. The amenities in his room are no less than a 7-star facility. For Olive, there are arrangements for alcohol and imported cigars. Sonoda can't believe that he is indeed a criminal, with arms bigger than any ordinary person's waist. Sonoda says that he can't figure out where to start the conversation. Then Olive says that he knows that Sonoda wants his help in catching some criminals because he has sent hundreds of dangerous criminals to the right place, and that's jail. Sonoda wanted to know why Olive, being a criminal himself, catches other criminals. But before he could inquire further, he receives the next case. Seeing the pictures of the criminals captured by Olive in jail, Sonoda is surprised and bewildered. They both then board a helicopter to reach the location where a building has been completely destroyed by a single individual. The person put hundreds of people to eternal sleep using numerous explosives and guns. The shocking thing was that the criminal had not yet fled the building, which meant he wanted something in return. Upon hearing this, Olive asks everyone to wait outside and enters the building alone. Inside, he finds Jeff Markson, a former policeman who had been waiting for him. Around 24 years ago, during his duty in Manhattan, Olive had attacked Jeff so brutally that not a single part of his body remained unharmed. Jeff had developed an intense desire for revenge against Olive ever since that day, and today was the day he had been eagerly waiting for. Olive smiles upon seeing Jeff and says that he was quite pleased to see him, but Jeff had foolishly come alone to face him. Jeff loads his gun and tells Olive to undress. However, upon witnessing Olive's muscular and powerful physique, Jeff realizes why the police had kept a criminal like him in their ranks. Without hesitation, Jeff starts firing at him, but Olive merely smiles and flexes, pushing all the bullets out of his body. He mocks Jeff, saying that his toy guns are weak for someone like him, a beast. Jeff slowly raises his hand, drawing a samurai sword to attack Olive, but Olive was prepared. When Jeff thrust the sword into his chest, it got stuck in Olive's skin as his heart was covered with a metal plate. Olive then delivers a powerful punch, sending Jeff flying out of the window. However, upon examining Jeff's body, it seems that he had already passed away before falling. All the officers thank Oliva. Oliva was a man with eccentric preferences. His diet consisted only of meat and wine and nothing else. However, the secret to his rapid recovery was the meat steak. As long as Oliva eats, his appetite doesn't seem to diminish, and his wounds heal without the need for any medication. Sonoda notices that the bullet wounds on Oliva's body were healing without any medicine. Oliva takes Sonoda to his personal library, where he reveals why he catches criminals even though he himself is one. He explains that he cannot stand any criminal being freer than him. The next day, arrangements are made for a private jet, and upon arriving in Tokyo, as soon as they land, Olive breaks the car's door and escapes before Sonoda's eyes. Kawazu is still in the same condition as when Serbsky brought her, but they are not alone there. Standing before him is none other than Baki's father, Yujiro Hama. Seeing Yujiro, Serbsky is somewhat delighted as he believed that Baki wasn't strong enough to be his opponent. But today, he has the opportunity to face the world's strongest fighter one-on-one, so there's no question about waiting for Baki anymore. Just then, Serbsky stands up and attempts to kick the table into Yujiro's face, but Yujiro counters with equal force. Serbsky's eyes turn red with anger, and just at that moment, Oliva intervenes and stops their altercation, greeting Yujiro after a long time. As the conversation continues between them, Baki had already arrived at the building. Oliva throws Serbsky away from him since Serbsky knows Oliva well and is aware that he is the only criminal in the world who has the freedom to go anywhere. Serbsky is unchained since Oliva considers him a worthy opponent. Serbsky feels like today is his golden chance to face two of the most dangerous fighters in the world. Just then, Baki makes his entry and sees Kozu's condition, which angers him, and he punches Serbsky with all his strength until he falls from the building. Oliva congratulates Baki as he managed to defeat his opponent by making him fall from such a height, which is nearly impossible to survive. Baki might not have known Oliva, so he unknowingly attacks him, but he realizes Oliva's strength and steps back. However, he is unaware that his previous opponent, Serbsky, is still alive, and he is ready for the next confrontation as Baki seems to have forgotten how Serbsky escaped from jail. In the same way, Serbsky manages to save himself by sliding his fingers across the building's wall and escaping. He climbs up a hotel wall as if it's a cakewalk, but Baki is ready to knock him down again. Just as they are about to clash, the police arrive and Serbsky manages to escape amidst the chaos. The next fight takes place on Serbsky's turf, where Baki faces him alone. Without giving Serbsky time to put on his clothes, Baki immediately attacks. Serbsky challenges Baki, asking if he believes he can face him empty-handed. But without wasting a second, Baki delivers his first attack, which sends Serbsky flying, but as soon as he stands up, Baki gives him another kick, and Serbsky's head collides with the bucket, causing him pain. Baki takes the opportunity to crush Serbsky's genitals, inflicting further agony upon him. Just then, Oliva arrives, having been welcomed by Serbsky's hired assassin. But Baki doesn't want anyone interfering in his fight, and he takes advantage of the situation, attacking Oliva as well. Serbsky doesn't want anyone to steal the limelight during his battle. However, when Serbsky sees Oliva standing there, his heart starts pounding. He was right. Oliva's strength was beyond his comprehension. Serbsky gathers all his strength and tries to use his brass knuckles to cut Oliva, tearing apart his clothes. But not even a single wound can be inflicted on Oliva's thick skin. For Oliva, this attack was as insignificant as a mosquito bite. Now it was Oliva's turn for a counterattack. One powerful punch from him sends Sairsky flying out of the building, and this time, there was no chance of him coming back. The fight proved that Sairsky was no match for Oliva's might, and he was defeated by the formidable fighter. In this way, Oliva hands over his first catch to the police and asks Sonoda to arrange for his comfort and await his call. Baki was grateful for Oliva's assistance this time, but he still wants to know the secret behind Oliva's powerful body. However, Oliva evades Baki's questions, leaving him curious. The next day, Oliva is conducting an investigation in the data processing room for his next target, Doyle. He starts smoking his cigar when an oddly dressed waitress enters the room and starts inquiring about Doyle. Oliva tells her that he is nearby and will soon be trapped in his clutches. At that moment, the waitress removes her wig, revealing herself to be Doyle himself. She spills coffee on Oliva's face and slashes him with a blade. Oliva quickly retaliates, knocking over his chair and locking all the exits, trapping Doyle with him. Standing up to face Oliva and attacking him requires great courage. However, just before the fight begins, Oliva starts losing his senses and Doyle takes advantage, deepening the wounds on his face with a kick. Oliva manages to stand up as the medicine had no effect on him. In response to Doyle's next attack, Oliva grabs his leg and spins him so fast that everyone outside the room gathers to watch. When questioned by some officers, Oliva lies, saying he fell from his chair, but he doesn't want any disturbance. Doyle was in a terrible condition, and as Oliva lifts him up by the collar, blood oozes out from the hidden blades in Doyle's collars. He tells the officers that he is busy with important work and doesn't want any interruptions. Doyle, in his incapacitated state, tries to attack Oliva, but Oliva punches him in the face and thrusts a knife into Doyle's abdomen. As soon as Oliva pulls the knife from his body, Sonoda and Shibukawa enter the room. They see the entire room covered in blood with wounds on Oliva's face and the knife in his hand. Sonoda becomes quite upset, and Oliva explains that he flirted with the police lady who got angry and attacked him, but her small knife couldn't harm him. Oliva was confident that the tiny knife couldn't pierce his skin. Oliva also recognizes Shibukawa, who is the founder of the Shibukawa Senpai, an organization that assists the police department. Without wasting time, Oliva remarks that facing a monster like him isn't child's play, challenging Shibukawa. The challenge is accepted, and as Oliva attempts to grab Shibukawa's hand, a latter skillfully twists his hand and throws him to the ground. Meanwhile, Doyle is shown in a tunnel smoking and then getting onto a train. Shibukawa handles Oliva as if he were a child. Oliva admits that he has never practiced judo before, and if he had, he would have been a gold medalist. Inside the judo room, there are several national players who will teach Oliva judo. The judo uniform is too tight for Oliva, so he tears the sleeves off, revealing his terrifying arms that leave everyone in awe. But like the others, Oliva must pass a test before wearing the judo belt. Being physically strong is not enough. One must be mentally and spiritually strong to practice judo. At Oliva's request, an opponent is chosen for him. Despite being of similar build, the opponent trembles at the sight of Oliva's muscular strength and soon appears defeated. However, another fighter suddenly steps forward, someone even more formidable than Olive and undefeated in any competition. Oliva grabs him by the collar and playfully spins him around as if he were a child. After wandering around for a while, Oliva decided to challenge someone again. This time, he was ready for the next round. As he grabbed his opponent with force, it seemed like he was fighting not against a human, but a giant tree. Oliva began to continuously throw his opponent to the ground, determined to do so till he earned the black belt. It felt as if Oliva was battling against a sturdy oak tree rather than a fellow fighter. He lifted his opponent in the air repeatedly, relentlessly working towards his goal of achieving the black belt. Watching Oliva's incredible strength, Sonoda was astonished. He explained that in judo, the basic principle is to throw the opponent on their back. Suddenly, Shibukawa himself entered the ring and declared that if Oliva managed to defeat him, he would grant him the black belt. Oliva saw this as his final opportunity. As he threw Shibukawa into the air, Shibukawa managed to land on his feet on the other side. However, to everyone's surprise, Oliva declared that he was giving up and willing to relinquish the black belt. The reason for Oliva's sudden change of mind was that Shibukawa had broken his wrist during the fight. Despite admitting defeat, Shibukawa still presented Oliva with a black belt as a reward for his efforts. He announced that it was a gift from Goki Shibukawa. As the story progressed, Shinoji Kosho made her entry. He possessed such incredible hand techniques that he could cut through objects as cleanly as a blade. His belief was that the human body itself was the most dangerous weapon. Kasumi sought her assistance in seeking vengeance against his father's enemies. Shinoji claimed that he could defeat any fighter merely by standing in front of them, even the formidable Retsu Kaiho. Meanwhile, Doyle was kept in room No. 701 under the supervision of Captain Gary from the U.S. Navy. Doyle practiced with his hidden blades while Gary observed him. As Doyle activated a blade with a gesture, he seemed to be honing his skills. The martial arts world they lived in was full of challenges, rivalries, and surprising turns of events. Doyle explained that some magicians also deceive the public by implanting a network of pipes inside their bodies, undergoing painful surgeries to pull off their tricks. Doyle used his trick to snatch Gary's hat, and when Gary reached forward to retrieve it, he saw Shinoji, who told Doyle that he knew he was searching for defeat, but before he could react, Shinoji delivered a scorching kick to his face, leaving him writhing in pain. She warned Doyle that as long as he kept coming before her, he would keep getting hurt at her hands. The riverside, Baki and Kozu were seen together, greeted by Hanayama, who arrived as an unknown guest, attempting to create trouble in their relationship. He suggested that since Baki is a champion kid, he should show interest in other girls instead of sticking to Kozu. This displeased Baki, and he attacked Hanayama, ready for a full-fledged match. However, Kazu was angrier with Hanayama and began relentlessly kicking him. Baki had to intervene as one blow from Hanayama could be fatal. Kazu expressed her disapproval of anyone trying to interfere with her true love and attempting to keep them apart. Upon hearing this, Hanayama realized it would be better to leave the scene. Doyle deviously dislocated Shinovi's neck, but she calmly corrected it herself. This time, Doyle had all of his blades activated and was fully prepared. Shinovi knew that any carelessness on her part would lead Doyle to show no mercy. Despite Doyle advancing towards her with his body full of sharp blades, Shinoji remained calm, but the sight of his deadly physique made her sweat. However, Doyle played a move that caught Shinoji completely off guard. He used explosives strategically on her face, ending the match instantly. Gary pointed out to Doyle that a true warrior never resorts to such extreme measures as using a gun against an opponent. Doyle believed that in a fight, everything is fair game, whether it be a gun or a missile. He was seeking someone who would challenge him to the point of accepting defeat. Meanwhile, Baki was lost in thoughts of Kozu. Her words had deeply affected him, and her face was all he could see in his dreams and memories. When Kozu arrived at his door, Baki expressed his feelings, telling her that she was the only one in his mind and heart. Kozu left but returned to Baki's room about half an hour later. Baki sensed her presence through her smell and felt her breath on his shoulders. They embraced and she slept beside him. Baki wanted to say something, but he couldn't gather the courage to speak. However, as he turned around, Baki saw a sight that was nothing short of a nightmare. Yujiro Hama, Baki's own father, stood in his room staring at them. Although it was an embarrassing situation, perhaps Yujiro wanted to convey something to Baki. Yujiro wanted Baki to become the world's strongest player just like him. He advised Baki to practice celibacy and maintain self-discipline throughout his life, as chasing pleasures could ruin his future. Yujiro also told Kozu that she needed to become a woman who the world would be proud of, not someone who took advantage of others. With this advice, Yujiro left. Now Baki faced a crucial decision in his life. He couldn't imagine his life without Kozu, but he also had an important match ahead. He asked Kozu for some time to think it over. The next day, Retsu was seen having lunch at a restaurant. A tall 7-foot man demonstrated his incredible strength. Upon seeing this man, Retsu was stunned. He recognized him as Jack Hama, a member of the Hama family and the son of Yujiro Hama. Jack's life had been entangled with drugs, but despite that, he had made it to the finals of the tournament with sheer determination. In the finals, Jack faced his younger brother Baki. Jack felt proud of Baki for making it this far despite his relatively young age and less muscle mass. Their match was intense and Baki emerged victorious. However, Jack had grown taller and more muscular than before. His sudden increase in height was suspected to be a result of questionable medical treatment by Dr. Shinogi, who was once a wrestler himself and now treating Jack. Dr. Shinogi suggested Jack to chew on bones like biscuits, which resulted in his continuous height gain. Jack vowed to take revenge on Kasho for defeating him. One day, while Retsu was in an elevator, Doyle suddenly appeared, and they started to confront each other. They decided that the next time they meet, only one of them would leave alive. However, they realized it was not the right place for a fight and chose to discuss their issues over a drink. During the heated discussion, Retsu made a taunting remark to Doyle, which led to Doyle attacking him with a knife. In response, Retsu skillfully deflected the attack, injuring Doyle in the process. As Retsu skillfully disarmed Doyle during their confrontation, he inflicted numerous wounds on him, extinguishing the fire burning on half of Doyle's body. Although Retsu had come prepared, he didn't want to give Doyle an easy death. He subdued Doyle and bound him like an animal. Doyle's attempts to outsmart Retsu were futile, and he realized there was no escape. Seeing the sword in Retsu's hand, Doyle knew his fate was sealed. Retsu struck Doyle with powerful punches, causing him to fall to his knees, begging for mercy. Doyle tried to use his smoke trick to deceive Retsu and stabbed him from behind. However, a simple knife was of no consequence to Retsu, and he easily countered the attack with a single punch that shook Doyle's senses. Retsu continued his relentless assault, leaving Doyle defenseless and on his knees, pleading for forgiveness. Despite Doyle's desperate pleas, Retsu remained resolute. He prepared his bamboo weapon and extracted the hidden blades from Doyle's body, allowing him a momentary reprieve. The fire in Retsu's eyes showed his anger and determination. Then Doyle stood up and attempted to ensnare Retsu in his deceitful tactics, but Retsu saw through the ruse and swiftly defeated Doyle. Doyle fell to the ground on his knees, begging for mercy. He used his bamboo weapon effectively, leaving Doyle mentally unhinged and covered in blood. Just before delivering the final blow, Doyle revealed his true form and tried to inject Retsu with something, but Retsu knew better than to fall for his tricks. However, another presence was present, Jack Hama, a muscular figure who had a long-standing grudge against Doyle. However, Jack chose not to kill him in front of the others, as it would be disrespectful to the fighter's honor. Instead, Jack decided to seek treatment for Doyle and departed from the scene. Doyle, in his severely weakened state, was unable to walk properly, let alone stand. As he shuffled along, he overheard some small-time thugs mocking him and trying to scare him with their makeshift weapons, which Doyle mistook for real threats. Although injured, Doyle was worried about Retsu's well-being, and whenever he tried to leave, someone would come and bother him. The events of the previous night were beyond anything Retsu could have imagined. When Retsu finally woke up, he saw Doyle standing before him, covered in blood and in a half-dead state. It became apparent that Doyle had kept a constant vigil over him throughout the night. Doyle's body was half covered in blood and he was barely conscious. Retsu was shocked to witness the extent of Doyle's condition and quickly rushed to lift him, carrying him on his back with great difficulty as they embarked on a difficult journey. Despite various obstacles along the way, Retsu pressed forward, determined to save Doyle's life. Retsu's heart, as tough as he was also compassionate and tender. Retsu eventually managed to cross a river with a weight of 90 kilograms on his back, reaching their destination. When Doyle finally regained consciousness, he found himself in a coma. Retsu was taking care of him with utmost dedication. Members of Shin Shin Kai donated blood for Doyle's recovery, and Retsu brought him nutritious food infused with medical herbs prepared with his own hands. After some time, Doyle disappeared from his room, but Retsu was not surprised. When evening came and the members were training, Kasumi suddenly noticed Doyle standing at a distance in the hall. Kasumi shouted at Doyle to take off his shoes, revealing a concern for cleanliness and discipline. The sight of Doyle standing again after his condition had seemed so dire brought a mix of emotions to Retsu's heart. A sense of gratitude and respect grew for the man he once saw as an enemy. As their paths crossed once more, a unique bond began to form between the two fighters. As Doyle expressed his gratitude to all the Shin Shin Kai members, he then revealed his true intentions. He declared that he wanted to burn their corpses right there because they were ultimately his enemies. Instead, Doyle mentioned that before fighting, he would put on his costume. When he donned the outfit, Kasumi realized that there must be some secret behind the fireproof suit. Doyle scattered a special kind of powder around the room, which made everyone present start coughing uncontrollably. Kasumi was scared at that moment. In the midst of this chaos, Doyle ignited a lighter and set the entire Shin Shin Kai floor on fire. Silently, he began to exit the place as if he knew nothing. Along the way, he encountered Shin Shin Kai's owner, Doppo Orochi, who confronted him. Doppo accused Doyle of not destroying Shin Shin Kai, but rather ruining his hard work and pride. Doyle, seemingly unfazed, continued on his way without responding. The fire continued to rage behind him as he walked away from the now-burning dojo. In his unique and mysterious way, Doyle had taken revenge without directly confronting anyone, leaving a powerful impact on the Shin Shin Kai members. It seemed that no matter what Doyle did, he couldn't escape his fate and past enemies. Doppo Orochi, Shin Shin Kai's owner, confronted Doyle and reminded him that he didn't need to fear his old enemies anymore because they were already gone. Oliva had become the victim of an active meteor, and Retsu had tragically lost his life during an earthquake. Their deaths were the result of their own fate, just as Doyle's own misfortune haunted him. Now facing Doppo Orochi, Doyle knew he was in grave danger. Doppo challenged him to face defeat and humiliation without running away. Doyle was given permission to use his hidden weapons and explosives, but Doppo seemed to be toying with him, trying to provoke fear and desperation. In a fit of anger, Doyle attacked, but Doppo's skillful punches quickly exposed Doyle's vulnerabilities. In the midst of the fight, Doyle's remaining eye opened to find himself in an unfamiliar place, witnessing an unknown man having breakfast with burned scars all over his body. As the man took off his hat, Doyle realized that it was Kasumi, and he held himself responsible for his condition. Kasumi questioned Doyle if he accepted defeat. Before Doyle could respond, Kasumi delivered a powerful kick that rendered Doyle unconscious again. When Doyle regained consciousness later in the evening, he attempted to attack Kasumi, but his body and mind were not prepared for the fight, and he was quickly defeated once more. Kawazu wanted to distance herself from Baki's life so that he could focus on his goals without any distractions. She wrote a letter to Baki, expressing her decision to leave his life permanently. As Baki read the letter, he became extremely emotional and started running here and there to find her. Kazu had already found a new place to live alone where she had made all the necessary arrangements. However, as soon as she entered the place, she found Baki waiting for her, breathing heavily. Baki had a deep love for Kozu, which made him stronger rather than weaker. Kazu questioned why Baki, who was destined to become the world's strongest person, had come there. But Baki's love for her made him strong, not weak. He didn't aspire to become as strong as Yujiro. He simply wanted to be strong enough to protect Kozu. Baki reached out to her and hugged her tightly, showing his affection. Meanwhile, Kasumi, the doctor of Shin Kai, was treating Doyle. When Kasumi learned that Doyle had regained consciousness, he left his own worries aside and focused on taking care of him. He made sure Doyle had a hearty meal, just like a sacrificial lamb before its halo. He tried a karate move, but Kasumi swiftly put him in his place. Kasumi asked Doyle if he accepted defeat, and when Doyle denied it, Kasumi delivered his most powerful punch to his face, leaving his face bloodied and bruised. After some time, Doyle was treated again, but this time, instead of Kasumi, his assistant Terada was present. Terada informed Doyle that Kasumi had defeated him about 4 hours ago during their match, where he had tortured Doyle and disrespected karate. Doyle realized that becoming a great fighter required not only strength but also humility and respect for the martial arts. After surrendering and accepting his first ever defeat, Doyle stepped out of Kasumi's gym and finally he accepted his defeat and surrender himself. Mitsunari come to meet a special friend. In his office, all the people were foreigners and his peculiar-looking males added to the eerie atmosphere. He revealed to Mitsunari the secrets of the black magic of air which allowed him to lift a bowling ball with his palm effortlessly. Such an act is beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person, but the surface's smoothness and density played a crucial role. He also mentioned one of his students who could put anyone to sleep by touching their face with his hand, as well as lift paper-like objects using his vacuum technique. This student was none other than Ryukyu Yanagi, who had been kept under control so far. Now the question was, who would dare to confront a sorcerer like Yanagi to put an end to him? Yanagi's master explained that despite anyone observing Yanagi from close proximity, they would still consider him a sorcerer due to his tricks. In reality, his name Poisoner had a different reason. Yanagi possessed a treasure trove of venomous insects and plants, which he crushed and mixed into a specific soil. This soil became poisonous and Yanagi would attack his own hand with it during his daily practice, using a special antidote to neutralize the poison's effects on his body. After this practice, Yanagi's hand would temporarily swell and become doubly painful, surpassing the endurance of an ordinary person. In a matter of seconds, Yanagi could use his poisonous hand to instantly paralyze an individual, turning them into a mere skeleton. The news reached Police Commissioner Sonoda that one of their prisoners had escaped from jail. However, the intriguing part was that the prisoner was confined in a tower with smooth walls, with no direct path or elevator to escape. But this situation was effortless for Sairuski, whose finger strength was unparalleled. Meanwhile, Baki and Kozu had become so deeply entangled in their love that it transcended into a physical relationship despite Yujiro Hama's objections. Baki broke his celibacy vow due to his profound affection for Kozu, and they spent 2 days together. On the day they emerged from their private time, they encountered Ryukyu Yanagi standing right in front of them. Though Baki was not in the mood for a fight, Yanagi still challenged him. However, when he mentioned Kozu's name, Baki accepted the challenge in a different demeanor. The duel between them would take place in an open ground where strong winds were blowing. Suddenly, Kozu declared that she would also fight alongside Baki. In that very moment, Baki swiftly defeated Yanagi with his lightning-fast punches. Yanagi kept acknowledging that Baki's strength had significantly increased. Its attack, known as the whip strike, had the power to tear anyone's muscles in such a way that they would beg for death due to excruciating pain. Yanagi's whip strike was capable of shattering a glass bottle, but in this battle, Baki proved to be even more formidable. Yanagi's arm speed was so incredible that it made predicting his attacks nearly impossible. He advanced to use his whip strike, but Baki was well aware of the technique as he had learned it from his father, Yujiro Hama, during his childhood. Baki maneuvered in the flow of air, striking Yanagi and making him feel a true pain. Baki knew that now it was impossible to stop him as he possessed the power of love. Finally, Baki managed to grab hold of Yanagi with immense force. However, just then, an unknown person interrupted the fight by kicking Baki. It turned out to be Sairuski, who attacked Baki with his sharp knuckles. But Baki evaded the attack by swiftly moving his face away from the strike. Both Yanagi and Sairuski realized that Baki had become significantly stronger than before. Now, Baki had to face two formidable enemies simultaneously. His confidence spoke volumes as Baki felt fully prepared. He approached Swarovski with determination. With those words, Baki unleashed his power upon Yanagi, striking him down. Baki fought both of them as if they were mere children, showing his resolve to taste victory. Yanagi couldn't believe what he was witnessing as he struggled to comprehend how Baki could have changed so drastically because of one girl's influence. Yanagi tried to manipulate Baki's mind, telling him that his strength was merely an illusion caused by someone else's influence. However, Baki's strength remained unwavering, even unaffected by Yanagi's poisonous attack. Baki delivered another decisive blow to both Yanagi and Swarovski. Just then, Hanayama made his entrance, revealing to Kozu that it was her love that brought about this transformation in Baki. By witnessing the power of true love, Baki had changed. He never aspired to become as powerful as his father. His goal was to protect Kozu and himself. Baki quickly took Kozu away when he noticed Yanagi and Swarovski trying to rise again. After Hanayama left, Yanagi began sobbing, realizing that he had been defeated by a child, his years of hard work going to waste. In the evening, Kasumi came to say goodbye to Doyle, who was returning home. Before departing, Doyle asked Kasumi for one last favor, to teach him Karat so that he could remember him. Kasumi taught Doyle the Seiken move, and in just a short time, Doyle became an expert. As it was time for the ship to leave, Kasumi presented Doyle with a black belt as a parting gift. However, such loyalty to his enemies could prove costly for Doyle, as Yanagi was also on the same ship. Yanagi stated that Doyle should feel ashamed even taking anything from his enemies. He used his poison punch to blind Doyle's other eye and then attempted to strangle him with a black belt. In the end, Yanagi told Doyle that he had lost his pride, and thus he had no right to live. Yanagi attacked Doyle with his sword, but Doyle managed to save himself using a steel rod fitted in his arms. After seeing no hopes to survive, Doyle chose to jump into the sea before Yanagi's eyes. Shortly after, Garland was shown, the servant of the Russian star who had been beaten so brutally by Swarovski that his mental condition had not recovered. When Russian police asked an athlete how someone could climb a smooth steel wall, he mentioned that only one person could do it by simply reading a novel while hanging from a nut. That person was Swarovski. Now Swarovski faced Jack Hama, a member of the Hama family, in a fight. Jack and Swarovski chose a bathroom to battle, where Swarovski showcased his finger strength. However, Jack quickly overpowered Swarovski, throwing him around like a monkey. Afterward, both men entered a telephone booth where another man was present. Swarovski knew that Jack wouldn't be able to take advantage of his height in this confined space. Without much thought, they launched a fierce battle against each other. Swarovski used his height advantage to gain the upper hand and severely damaged Jack. However, Jack wasn't one to give up easily. During their struggle in the telephone booth, it tipped over and fell with Jack emerging from it. As he stood there, some officers approached to take Swarovski, who was still bound in the booth, into custody. Suddenly, the man responsible for Swarovski's current condition and seeking revenge, Mr. Kanji, appeared. Swarovski had brutally beaten and humiliated him, destroying his self-respect and pride in front of his mates. Kanji had vowed to take revenge on Swarovski, and now he was burning with the desire for payback. Swarovski felt that he was being taken somewhere and the booth was closed, leaving him inside. He knew that he would face Jack again outside. As the booth lit up with a bright light, Swarovski found himself in the middle of a ring, face to face with Jack again. Mitsunari announced that there will be no rules for this match, which was favorable for Swarovski. He was now ready to show his true strength in an unrestricted battle. When Swarovski first met Mitsunari, he had said that a true fighter was someone who was ready to fight at any moment and could defeat anyone they faced. Now those words were weighing heavily on him as he stood before Jack Hama. Seeing Swarovski in this state brought a different smile to Kanji's face. Jack informed Swarovski that today was his chance for an unregulated battle, and Swarovski couldn't contain his excitement, expressing his readiness for the match. As Swarovski charged at Jack with renewed enthusiasm, he soon found himself being thrown by Jack, who had lifted him on his shoulders and slammed him down on the other side of the ring. But Swarovski had anticipated this move, and he quickly retrieved a barricade made of steel rods and a wooden mace resembling a sledgehammer. Swarovski tried to strike Jack with the mace, but the thick mace couldn't penetrate Jack's tough skin. Without pause, Swarovski threw the steel nail at Jack, but Jack effortlessly caught it with his mouth and spit out after chewing like a toothpick. He then walked away, his focus now on the entry of a new fighter named Gaia. Gaia appeared ordinary at first glance, but he had defeated other powerful fighters and was known for his unorthodox and deadly fighting style. As Gaia entered the ring, people started insulting him, but he unleashed a fierce roar that silenced everyone. Swarovski, for the first time, looked fearful and confused. Gaia started his attack by brandishing a knife, keeping Swarovski at bay. Then he revealed a gun, making everyone tense up. Gaia understood that using different weapons would prevent martial arts from being disrespected, and his unique ability was using the environment around him to his advantage. This time, he utilized sand as his weapon. The fighting ring was surrounded by sand, mixed with shattered bones and teeth, forming a dangerous and deadly weapon in Gaia's hands. He could manipulate the water like a deadly poison, and this time he had sand infused with sharp teeth. Gaia's proficiency in using his surroundings as weapons made him an unpredictable and formidable opponent. Sariski realized that he was facing an opponent unlike any he had encountered before. Suddenly, Gaia started swirling a massive cloud of dust, and within seconds, he vanished from everyone's sight. Sariski, now lost in the dust storm, searched for Gaia like a desperate lover, but Gaia's camouflage technique made it nearly impossible to find him, let alone defeat him. Sariski felt disoriented in the swirling dust cloud, and his heart was pounding. He was covered in sweat, but he could not find Gaia to retaliate. He yelled at Gaia, challenging him to fight like a true man. But in this match without rules, victory and survival were at stake. Gaia continued his relentless assault, inflicting wounds upon Sariski one after another. It was as if Sariski was battling an invisible opponent. His heart was racing and he was drenched in sweat. Gaia's tactics were unconventional and dangerous. On the other hand, Yanaji was waiting for his own battle at the park. Meanwhile, Shibuya encountered a peculiar incident along the way. He faced a large gate, reminiscent of the one he encountered during his fight with Jack. His mentor had taught him to ignore such distractions and keep moving forward. Shibuya remembered the advice but felt a bit uneasy when he saw a mysterious lake nearby. In the park, as Yanaji awaited his battle, a man named Izumoto appeared. Yanaji seemed unfazed by his presence. Izumoto was an expert in jujutsu-style combat and skilled in using various weapons. He expressed his desire to spar with Yanaji and suddenly thrust his sword into Yanaji's leg, breaking his ankle. Similarly, Sariski's condition worsened with each passing moment as Gaia inflicted mental torment upon him. Sariski found it challenging to even stand on his feet, let alone launch an attack. Gaia's mind games were pushing him to the brink. Eventually, Sariski had to accept his defeat and beg Gaia for mercy. Meanwhile, Yanaji was not faring well either. He attempted to intimidate Izu by brandishing his own weapon, but Izu retaliated swiftly, using his superior skills to disarm Yanaji and even injure his poisonous hand. Izu then removed his sword from Yanaji's leg and asked if he accepted defeat. Yanaji burst into laughter, as behind Izu, Yujiro Hama stood with a smile on his face. Yujiro Hama, one of the most formidable fighters, had been observing the battle. He smashed Izu's sword like a dry leaf, leaving Yanaji with no choice but to acknowledge his defeat. Both Yanaji and Sariski had faced powerful adversaries and were forced to admit their loss. The park was filled with the echoes of battles fought and lessons learned. Each fighter's journey was a testament to their strength, determination, and the continuous pursuit of self-improvement in the world of martial arts. At that moment, Shibuya arrived and assessed Yanaji's condition, sensing that the battle might have already ended. Yujiro informed Shibuya that he arrived late, and before leaving he dealt Yanaji a powerful punch that left him bloodied and unconscious on the ground. Soon after, it was discovered that both Doyle and Oliva were alive, and they reunited in a cave. Doyle had lost his eyesight completely and wanted to surrender himself to the police. Oliva knew that his condition was due to a dangerous poison, and ultimately, all 5 giants had tasted the bitterness of defeat. Kazu and Baki were happy together, but when Kazu offered food to Baki, he refused. Baki's hunger and sleep had disappeared entirely, and he appeared frail and aged due to the strain on his body. Concerned, Kazu took Baki to the hospital against his will, and the news of Baki's condition spread among their friends and companions. Baki's treatment was now under the care of Dr. Kuhara as he battled the consequences of the intense and grueling fights he had experienced. The journey of these fighters was filled with triumphs and struggles, shaping their destinies and making them formidable contenders in the world of martial arts. He told Kazu with concern that it's a miracle that Baki is still alive in his current state. Hearing this, Kazu felt devastated and started crying alone. Suddenly, a stranger approached her, trying to comfort her and handed her a doll, saying it could help her overcome all her troubles. However, he forgot what he had come to ask. A fighter named Dave, a well-known fighter, is eagerly waiting for young boy. After a while, the young boy, now wearing boxing gloves, got ready to fight Dave, but Dave chose to face him bare-handed. Dave launched a powerful attack, but the boy managed to knock him down with a stunning punch. It turned out that the boy was none other than Junior Muhammad, the son of the legendary Muhammad Ali, a force to be reckoned with even for experienced fighters like Dave. As the events unfolded, it became clear that Baki's condition was a result of Yanaji's poison, gradually weakening his body. On that day, a Japanese reporter visited the great Muhammad Ali's home and witnessed the sight of a champion trembling due to old age, struggling to walk. When Muhammad Ali mentioned Yujiro Hama's name, the reporter was left utterly astonished. Muhammad Ali is undoubtedly one of the strongest boxers of his time, where even lasting a minute against him was a challenge. During his visit to Japan in 1976, he was set to face a seasoned fighter for whom Muhammad was giving his all in practice. He had 3 companions with him, but one evening while jogging together, they mysteriously disappeared one by one. Muhammad couldn't comprehend what was happening until he sensed the smell of a wild beast. However, the beast in the jungle turned out to be none other than Yujiro Hama, who stood before him. Yujiro was not just strong in appearance, he was even more dangerous than he seemed. He recognized that Muhammad was not just a boxer, but an artist in the form of martial arts. Learning martial arts had been a dream for him since his childhood. When Yujiro attacked him, Muhammad skillfully defended himself using his martial arts prowess, proving that he was not just a boxer, but practitioner of mixed martial arts. However, in the next moment, Yujiro stopped himself from defeating Muhammad and praised him, acknowledging his immense respect for Muhammad Ali. He admired how Muhammad had always fought for his people and humanity, valuing his fighting skill less than the greatness of his heart. Yujiro assured Muhammad that he would never humiliate such a great soul. Meanwhile, Baki had escaped from the hospital and reached the jungle with Kozu, where he encountered Raichi Ando. Ando was a lone mountain ranger who preferred solitude. Seeing Baki's weak condition, he understood that it was due to a dangerous venom, the venom of the world's deadliest creatures. Ando prepared a potent remedy for Baki and gave it to him to drink. Baki and Kozu are happy in the jungle, spending quality time together with other people. Muhammad Ali shared that he introduced his young and mischievous son to Yujiro. He expressed his dream that his son would become a greater and more magnificent boxer than himself, with each of his moves being professional and perfect. Suddenly, Junior Ali began showcasing his boxing skills to Yujiro as boxing ran in his blood. However, Yujiro effortlessly brushed him off with a flick of his finger, telling him not to cry because he carries the blood of a legend within him. As Baki and Kozu returned from their stroll, they found that a guest had arrived to meet Ando. It was Retsu Kaiho, who immediately knocked Baki unconscious with a powerful punch to carry him back to China. Soon after, a Chinese government helicopter landed with officers and missionaries on board. Retsu wanted to save Baki from a weakened state, knowing that he wouldn't survive long without practice and challenges in the jungle. When Baki woke up, an assistant brought him food and Retsu brought Ryu Kaiho with him. He wanted Baki to participate in the Reitei tournament. Ryu Kaiho pleaded with Baki to stay away from these dangerous situations as he was a child and also vulnerable to a deadly venom. Retsu insisted that Baki would have to fight Cho to prove himself, and Baki hesitated but trusted Retsu's belief in him. Yanacho was on the path to becoming a Kaiho, capable of shattering rocks with his bare hands. However, his arrogance was also at its peak as he wanted to defeat Baki effortlessly to satisfy his ego, not just for the sake of Reitei. But right from the start, Baki caught him off guard and effortlessly lifted him up, almost as if Cho had underestimated him. Cho's every attack on Baki was like a game, so he eventually accepted his defeat on his own. Baki secured his place in the Reitei competition. During dinner that evening, Master Ryu revealed that the Reitei tournament occurs only once every 100 years, and that being a Kaiho is crucial to participate, just like Ryu Kaiho and Retsu Kaiho. Many Kaiho fighters are eager to become true Kaihos in this battle. Master Ryu hinted to Baki that even if he might not want to participate in Reitei, he would be interested once he heard a particular piece of news. Retsu then informed them that the world's strongest fighter, Yujiro Hama, is also participating in the Reitei tournament, which left Kozu sobbing uncontrollably. Later, Master Ryu's disciple informed Baki that another fighter from America has come to participate in Reitei, and he is none other than Junior Muhammad, who closely resembles his father. Junior Ali seeks an opportunity to prove himself, and after defeating one of Ryu's disciples, he confidently secures his place. Meanwhile, Baki's condition worsens every passing moment. He struggles to control the vomiting of his own blood. However, this time, Kozu motivates him to fight and encourages him. As the day of the match arrives, countless fighters gather, each more formidable than the other. The question remains whether Yanagi's poison will allow Baki to endure in this intense battle.